Her mother stood in my kitchen like she owned the air, not sitting, not asking, just standing there in a wool coat that probably cost more than my car, jaw tight, eyes already convinced. Behind her, Mara's father filled the doorway with that quiet, righteous bulk men use when they think they're about to handle something. And Mara's sister, Tessa, hovered a step back, arms crossed, chin lifted, wearing the kind of wounded expression you'd see on a soap opera poster. Mara was between them and me, perfectly placed. Not too close to her family, not too close to me. The neutral zone, the safe zone, the zone where liars like her like to live. Evan, her mother said, like my name was a stain she had to taste before she could spit it out. We're taking our daughter home. I looked down at the kitchen table out of habit, like there might be instructions there. Like someone could have left a manual titled, "What to Do When the Love of Your Life Turns You into a Monster in Front of Witnesses." There wasn't. Just 2 mugs, my keys, a grocery receipt, evidence of a normal morning that apparently ended at some point without my permission. "Home," I repeated. "Okay." Mara's father took that as weakness. He stepped forward, shoulders rolling like he was warming up for a fight he'd been dreaming about. She told us everything. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Mara kept her eyes on my face, watching for the panic, the pleading, the begging, the outburst. She'd rehearsed this. I could tell by the way she didn't blink at the word everything. Her mother's voice sharpened. "She says you've been abusive." There it was. That word. The kind of word that can turn a man into a headline without a trial. The kind of word that can erase your reputation like it was written on a fogged mirror. I stared at Mara. Her mouth was set in a small, controlled line, but her eyes had that glossy, practiced sheen. The look she'd worn at charity dinners when she told a story about overcoming adversity. The look that made people lean in and pat her hand and feel good about themselves for believing her. Tessa let out a shaky breath, like she was suffering just standing in the same room as me. I did a quick mental inventory of the last month. Mara coming home late with the sweet mint smell of a hotel lobby on her hair. The way she'd stopped touching me in the doorway, like I'd become something sticky. The second phone she'd started keeping face down. The work crises that always happened on Fridays. The careful way she'd been planting distance between us, like she was moving chess pieces, not just leaving, setting a stage. Abusive, I said again, slow. Not because I didn't understand the word, because I wanted to hear how it sounded in my own voice, wanted to see if it made my tongue feel dirty. Mara's mother nodded like a judge. "She's scared of you." "Scared," I echoed. Mara's father's jaw clenched. "Don't you dare play games." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd, because the only person playing games in that room was the woman I'd been planning a wedding with. I didn't laugh. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't do anything that could be clipped into a story. Mara watched me like she was waiting for a dog to bite. Instead, I reached for my coffee mug. The ceramic was still warm. I took a sip like we were having a normal morning, like there weren't 4 people in my kitchen here to erase me. "I'm not stopping anyone," I said. "If Mara wants to go, she can go." Her mother's expression flickered. Surprise, just for a second. She'd wanted drama, tears, denial, a performance, something she could tell her bridge club about. Mara's lips tightened. That was the first crack. Just a hairline fracture in the perfect plan. "You don't get to act calm now," Tessa snapped, voice thin. "After everything you've done." I looked at her. Really looked. She had on a long-sleeve sweater, despite the heating being on. Her sleeves were pulled down over her wrists. For a second, My brain offered up an image I didn't want to picture. Dark marks, bruises, proof. Then I noticed how she held herself. Like someone wearing a costume she wasn't comfortable in. Like someone trying too hard to look fragile. Mara shifted her weight. Slight. Subtle. A micro-movement. She didn't glance at her sister's sleeves, but I saw the tension in her throat. Like she was listening for a line to be said right. And suddenly, a thought slid into place with a sick little click. This wasn't just a lie. This was choreography. Her father's voice dropped into a threat dressed up as concern. We already called the police. The word police hit the room like a door slamming. Mara didn't flinch. She already knew. She'd already decided. She'd already pictured me in handcuffs, neighbors watching through blinds, my name turning into something people said with a tight mouth. My phone buzzed on the counter. A notification. Not important. The sound still felt like a warning bell. I set my mug down carefully so it didn't clink. A stupid detail, but that's what your brain does in moments like this. It grabs tiny things to keep from screaming. Mara's mother lifted her chin. We're not going to let you intimidate her anymore. I looked at Mara again. She finally met my eyes fully. And in that look, I saw something that wasn't fear. It was anticipation. Like she was waiting for the moment she could cry on cue and watch the room turn on me. My heart didn't race. It didn't pound. It just went cold. Like someone had poured ice water straight into my chest. I nodded once. Please do, I said. Mara blinked. Her father hesitated, thrown by the lack of resistance. What? Take her home, I repeated. If that's what you're here for, take her. For half a second, the only sound was the refrigerator humming and the rain tapping the window like impatient fingers. Mara's mother's eyes narrowed. You're not going to stop us? No. Mara opened her mouth, probably to say something soft and tragic, something designed to make her parents feel heroic, something designed to make the police feel useful. I spoke first. There's just one thing, I said, still calm. Before anyone leaves, before the police walk in here and decide who I am. Mara's gaze sharpened. Her eyes darted, just once, toward the hallway, toward the drawer where I kept the old tablet. The one she'd forgotten was still synced. Her face didn't change much. Mara was good. Mara was always good. But her throat bobbed when she swallowed, and the skin around her eyes tightened like it was trying to hold back a crack. Her mother scoffed. You're going to try to manipulate us now? Is that what this is? I smiled, small and tired. No, I'm going to let you hear Mara. Mara's nails dug into her own palm. I saw it because she'd turned her hand slightly, like she was reminding herself how to feel pain. Evan, she said quietly, a warning disguised as a plea. Don't. There it was. The first real emotion I'd heard from her in weeks. Not fear for herself, fear of losing control of the story. Outside, a siren wailed closer, then cut off abruptly, as if someone had decided my street was the final destination. Mara's father turned his head toward the window, then back to me. What did you do? Nothing illegal, I said. Nothing dramatic. I walked to the hallway with slow steps, hands visible like I was performing innocence for the imaginary audience of the police. Behind me, Mara's mother hissed, He's stalling. Mara didn't speak. She just watched. I opened the drawer and took out the tablet. It felt absurdly light for something that could change my life. I carried it back to the kitchen table and set it down between us like a peace offering. My finger hovered over the screen. Mara's eyes widened a fraction. A tiny flinch, like she'd been slapped in a place no one could see. The knock came at the door, firm, official, the sound of authority arriving to pick a side. I didn't go to answer it yet. I looked at Mara one last time, and I pressed play. The room filled with her voice, not raised, not panicked, calm, casual, almost bored. No, you can't just let it fade. You have to make it visible, Mara said from the tablet speaker. People don't believe words. They believe marks. Her mother stiffened. Her father's brow creased. Tessa sucked in a sharp breath. On the screen, the audio waveform moved steadily, indifferent to the damage it was doing. I told you, Mara's recorded voice continued. Use makeup first, purple and yellow, like this. A faint rustle. Fabric. Then, listen to me. Press here. A soft, wet sound, like skin being pinched too hard. It hurts, but that's the point. Don't cry yet. Wait. My stomach didn't turn. It locked. Wait until they ask, the recording said. If you cry too early, it looks fake. You want confusion first. Then sympathy. Tessa's face drained of color. Her arms uncrossed, hands falling uselessly to her sides. Mara lunged for the tablet, not dramatically, instinctively, like someone reaching for a dropped knife. I moved it just out of reach. Evan, she said sharply. No softness now, no performance. Turn that off. Her mother looked at her, really looked at her. Mara? The recording kept going. And wear long sleeves when you come over. Pull them up slowly when Mom asks if you're okay. Slowly. Let her see you deciding whether to tell. Silence swallowed the kitchen when the audio ended. Not peaceful silence. The kind that presses on your ears until you notice your own breathing. Tessa let out a broken sound that might have been a sob or might have been a laugh. I didn't want to, she whispered. You said I had to. Mara's head snapped toward her. Shut up! Her mother stepped back like she'd been struck. What? What is this? Before I could answer, the knock came again. Louder. More impatient. Police! A man's voice called through the door. Mara moved first this time. She straightened, wiped her face with the heel of her hand, and turned toward the door with practiced speed. I spoke without raising my voice. I'll get it. Her father blocked my path. No. You stay right there. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The truth was already loose in the room, crawling where it wanted. Her mother opened the door. 2 officers stood on the porch, rain beating on their jackets. One older, one younger. The older one took in the scene in a single sweep. The family cluster, Mara's red eyes, Tessa shaking, me standing still with the tablet in my hands. We received a call reporting domestic abuse, the older officer said, neutral. Not accusing, not friendly. Mara inhaled sharply and let it out in a way that was almost theatrical. Yes, she said. That's why they're here. Her voice cracked right on schedule. The younger officer glanced at Tessa. Ma'am, are you injured? Tessa looked at Mara. Mara's jaw tightened, just for a split second. Tessa swallowed. No, she said quietly. Mara's head snapped around. Tessa! The older officer raised a hand. Ma'am, one at a time. He looked at me. Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside with my partner for a moment. I nodded. Of course. As I passed Mara, she leaned in close enough that only I could hear her. You think this saves you? She whispered. You've just made it worse. I met her eyes. Up close, I could see the fear now. Thin, sharp, real. It saves me, I said. What happens to you is optional. Outside, the rain smelled like metal and asphalt. The younger officer stood a few feet away, giving us space. The older one spoke quietly. You want to explain that recording? I can, I said, and I can show you where it came from. He nodded. We'll get to that. For now, stay here. Through the window, I saw Mara pacing, talking fast, her hands cutting the air like she could slice her way out of this. Then her phone buzzed. She froze. She looked down at the screen, then up, straight at me, through the glass. Whatever she read wiped the last of her confidence off her face. Her smile didn't come back this time. And I realized something then, standing in the rain with a police officer watching my hands. This wasn't the moment I cleared my name. This was the moment she understood she'd misjudged the kind of man she'd tried to bury. The older officer didn't rush me. That told me everything. He leaned back against the porch railing, rain tapping off his cap, eyes steady, but no longer hostile. The kind of look that says, "I've seen liars, and you're not moving like one." "Walk me through it," he said. Slow. I did. No speeches, no drama, just facts, in the order they happened, the shared devices, the cloud backup. The audio notes synced automatically because Mara never turned off family sharing. Ironic, given how carefully she'd been planning to erase me. I told him when I discovered it. What I did and didn't touch. What I recorded and why. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once and glanced toward the window again. Inside, Mara had stopped pacing. She was standing very still now, phone pressed to her ear, her mouth moving in short, sharp bursts. Not crying, not pleading, arguing. That was another crack. Victims don't argue like that. Strategists do. "Did you ever lay a hand on her?" the officer asked. "No." "Ever threaten her?" "No." "Ever raise your voice?" I thought about that one. About the night 3 weeks ago when she came home at midnight and smelled like someone else's cologne, and I asked her where she'd been. About how she'd smiled and said, "You're imagining things," like I was a child. "I've been angry," I said, "but I've never scared her." He studied my face for a long moment, like he was trying to see the ghost of the man Mara had described. The younger officer came back out, holding a notepad. "Sir," he said to his partner, low, "the sister denies any physical abuse, says she was encouraged to exaggerate." Encouraged. The word landed heavy. Inside, Mara's mother had sunk into a chair. Her posture collapsed in on itself, like something structural had failed. Her father stood behind her, one hand on the back of the chair, knuckles white. Mara saw us looking. She ended the call and turned sharply toward the door. I felt it then. Not relief, not triumph. A shift. The story she'd been telling, the one where I was the monster, where she was brave and fragile, had just lost its oxygen. And stories like that don't end quietly. The older officer straightened. "We're going to need to ask some more questions inside." "I understand," I said. As we stepped back into the kitchen, Mara moved toward me, her face rearranging itself mid-stride into something wounded and soft. It was impressive, really, like watching an actor hit their mark. "I didn't want it to come to this," she said, voice trembling. "You've been so unpredictable lately." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The officers were watching her now, not me. Her mother's voice broke. "Mara, is any of this true?" Mara didn't answer right away. That was the worst part. Not denial, not outrage, calculation. Then she laughed. Just a little. "This is insane. He's manipulating all of you. He always does." The older officer raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to lower your voice." She rounded on him. "You're supposed to protect me." "We protect people," he said evenly. "Not stories." That was when I knew the night wasn't ending the way she'd planned. They separated us. Standard procedure. I sat at the table, hands flat, staring at the faint coffee ring I'd left earlier. Mara stood by the counter, arms folded tight across her chest, eyes darting everywhere but at me. I heard the questions. I heard the pauses. I heard Tessa start crying for real this time. After a while, the officers conferred quietly near the door. The younger one glanced at me, then away, like he'd already made up his mind but wasn't allowed to say it yet. The older officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Crow," he said, "based on what we have right now, we're not placing you under arrest." Mara sucked in a breath so sharp it sounded painful. "But," he continued, "this matter isn't closed. There are false reporting concerns here that may need follow-up." False reporting. Mara's face went pale, not performative pale, actual blood leaving the face pale. Her mother stood up slowly, like gravity had changed. "Mara," she whispered, "what did you do?" Mara didn't answer her. She looked at me instead, and for the first time since I'd known her, there was no mask left, just fear, naked, furious, desperate. "You think you've won," she said quietly. "You haven't." I met her stare. "I'm not playing to win," I said. "I'm playing to end it." The officers left soon after, the rain swallowing their footsteps. The house felt cavernous once the door closed behind them. No applause, no vindication, just the aftermath. Her parents didn't look at me when they gathered their coats. Her mother's eyes stayed on the floor. Her father nodded once, stiff, like acknowledging a stranger. They took Mara with them. She stopped at the doorway, one hand on the frame, back to me. "This isn't over," she said. I believed her, because as the door shut and the lock clicked, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. One line of text. "Stop digging. You're already in over your head." I stared at the screen, the reflection of my own face looking back at me like I didn't quite recognize it anymore. And that was the moment I understood something I should have realized sooner. Mara hadn't built this lie alone. I didn't answer the text. That was the first move. People like Dane, men who send messages from unknown numbers, expect reaction. Fear, negotiation. Silence unsettles them. Silence makes them imagine you screenshotting, forwarding, cataloging. I set my phone face down and stood in the kitchen for a long minute, listening to the house breathe. The refrigerator clicked, pipes ticked. Everything familiar felt provisional now, like it could be taken away if I blinked wrong. Mara hadn't taken much: a suitcase, her laptop, the jewelry she wore when she wanted to feel expensive. She'd left behind things that said us, a framed photo from a beach we'd loved, a sweater she used to steal from me, the spare key hanging on the hook by the door. Mistakes like that come from confidence. I poured the rest of the coffee down the sink and rinsed the mug until the ring disappeared. Then I sat and did what I should have done weeks ago. I thought. Not about revenge yet. About structure. About how this lie had been built and what kind of scaffolding it needed to stand. Mara worked in corporate communications. Crisis narratives were her specialty. She didn't improvise. She engineered. The abuse story hadn't been a panic response. It had been a planned exit, a controlled burn that left me radioactive while she walked away clean, supported, believed. Which meant there were drafts, versions, and people who'd helped her workshop it. I didn't need to break into anything or hack anything or become a movie villain. I just needed to let her believe the story was still hers. So I played the role she expected. I sent one message. To her, "I won't fight you publicly. I just want this to end." It took 6 minutes for her to respond. "Good. Then don't make this worse." There it was, the assumption that I was still reacting. I spent the next 2 days being boring. I went to work, I answered emails, I didn't post, I didn't talk. I didn't correct anyone who looked at me a little differently now, like they were checking for shadows. I let the whisper travel ahead of me and do what whispers do. And while I did that, I collected. Nothing flashy, just the kind of crumbs people leave when they think the storm has passed. Doorbell footage from the night she said she'd stayed late at the office. Time-stamped, showing her leaving at 10:30, not midnight. A rideshare receipt forwarded automatically to our shared email, destination listed as a downtown address that wasn't the firm. A calendar invite she'd forgotten to delete, labeled DK Dinner, marked private but still visible in metadata. And Ray. Ray Maddox didn't ask questions when I showed up at his gym early one morning. He just handed me a towel and nodded toward the heavy bag. "You look like hell," he said, "working on it." I didn't tell him everything. I didn't have to. Ray had seen Mara once, weeks back, slipping into a black sedan outside the gym lot while she thought no one was watching. He'd mentioned it casually at the time, like it was nothing. Now it was something. "I'm not asking you to testify," I told him. Just, if anyone asks, say what you saw. Ray studied me for a moment. You sure you want to go down this road? I thought of the recording, of Tessa's sleeves, of Mara's smile when she'd said abusive. I'm already on it, I said. That night, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't unknown. It was a name I didn't expect. Celeste Kessler. The message was short. We need to talk. I think your fiancé is sleeping with my husband. I stared at the screen, feeling something close to laughter rise in my chest. Not joy, recognition. Of course she was. I didn't reply immediately. I waited an hour, then another. Let Celeste wonder if I was ignoring her the way I'd ignored Dane. Finally, I typed, I was hoping you'd reach out. We met in a quiet bar near the river, the kind of place where people went to be unseen. Celeste arrived alone, hair pulled back, eyes sharp and tired. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. I'm not here to make friends, she said. If you're lying, I'll know. Good, I said. If you're lying, I will too. That got a smile. Thin, dangerous. We compared notes, not theatrically, like accountants reconciling a ledger. Dates, times, places, little overlaps that lined up too cleanly to be coincidence. When I told her about the abuse lie, her mouth went still. He promised her an exit, she said after a moment. That's Dane's move. He convinces women they're victims, then rescues them from the mess he helped create. Did he plan to keep her? I asked. Celeste laughed. This time, it was bitter. No, he plans to discard her once she's inconvenient. That was the first time I felt something like anticipation instead of rage. We didn't shake hands when we left. We didn't need to. Alliances like this don't require ceremony. As I walked back to my car, I noticed a black sedan idling across the street. The engine revved slightly. The driver's window rolled down halfway. Dane Kessler leaned out, tie loosened, smile sharp as glass. Man, he said, like we were old friends, you really don't know when to quit. I stopped a few feet away, close enough to smell his cologne. Expensive, overconfident. You texted me, I said. Figured you wanted to talk. He chuckled. I wanted you to understand something. Go on. He leaned back against the door, casual, blocking the sidewalk like it belonged to him. Mara made choices, bad ones. You pushing this? That's you making things worse for yourself. For me, I said. He nodded. Careers get ruined, reputations stick, accidents happen. There it was. Not a threat, a suggestion, carefully worded, meant to slide under the skin and stay there. I stepped closer, not into his space, just close enough that he had to look up at me instead of down. You should be careful, I said. You're talking to someone who's done being polite. His smile flickered, just a little. Don't get brave, he said. It won't end well. I shrugged. You should have thought of that before you taught my fiancé how to fake bruises. The color drained from his face so fast it was almost impressive. I turned and walked away before he could recover. Behind me, I heard his car door slam. I didn't run. I didn't look back, because now I knew two things for certain. First, they were scared. Second, they were going to make a move, and the next one wouldn't be subtle. By morning, the rumor had already outrun the truth. That's how it always works. The truth walks. The rumor takes a car. I heard it in the pause when people answered my emails, in the way a coworker I barely knew suddenly asked if I was holding up okay. In the silence from people who used to reply within minutes. Nobody said the word abuse out loud. They didn't need to. It hung there like humidity. I let it. I showed up. I did my job. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't defend myself. Defense looks like guilt to people who are already halfway convinced. Mara, on the other hand, was busy. I knew because Celeste texted me screenshots. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic. Just fragments, office chatter. A carefully worded message sent accidentally to the wrong distribution list. and quickly deleted. A calendar block labeled personal that suddenly became legal consult. Mara was repositioning. That afternoon, I got the call I'd been expecting. Unknown number again. I answered this time. "You're forcing our hand," Dane said without preamble. No greeting, no threats. That meant he was past intimidation and into control. "I'm not forcing anything," I said. "You're just uncomfortable." He exhaled slowly. "This stops now. You walk away. You keep your mouth shut. Mara gets a clean break." "And I get what?" I asked. A pause. The kind men like him use when they think they're about to say something generous. "You get to keep your job," he said. "Your reputation stabilizes. No more police, no more whispers." I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "You don't own my reputation." Another pause. Shorter. Tighter. "No," he said, "but I know how these things end." "I do too," I said. "That's why I'm not the one calling." I hung up before he could respond. 2 hours later, Tessa called. Her voice was wrecked. Real wrecked this time. "She says we have to do it again," she whispered. "Worse. She says if I don't, she'll tell Mom I lied about everything and ruin me." "Do what again?" I asked, though I already knew. "The bruises," she said. "Photos this time." I closed my eyes. "Where are you?" I asked. "At my parents' place." "Good," I said. "Don't leave. And don't do anything she tells you to do." "She says she'll destroy you," Tessa cried. I pictured Mara saying it. Calm, certain, like gravity. "She already tried," I said. "It didn't work." I ended the call and sat very still. This was the fork. Up until now, everything I'd done had been positioning. Containment. Making sure the lie couldn't grow legs and sprint. What Mara was doing now, escalating, forcing evidence into existence, that was desperation. Desperation makes mistakes. That night, someone tried my front door. Not aggressively, not kicking it in. Just the handle turning, slow and deliberate. Testing. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The handle stopped. A shadow crossed the frosted glass. A voice, low, unfamiliar, muttered something I couldn't make out. Then the doorbell camera pinged my phone. I waited until the footsteps retreated before I checked it. The image was grainy, but clear enough. A man in a hooded jacket. Wrong shoes for the neighborhood. He leaned close to the door before leaving, close enough that the camera caught his voice. "Last warning." I forwarded the clip to myself. Backed it up twice. Then I sent one message. To Celeste. "He's escalating." Her reply came immediately. "I know. He told me you were unstable." I stared at that word for a long time. Unstable. That's what men like Dane call anyone who refuses to stay where they put them. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I drove across town instead, parked 2 blocks from Dane's house, and waited. I wasn't there to confront him. I wasn't there to threaten him. I just needed to see him in his natural habitat. Needed to know whether he felt safe. He did. He jogged out of his house at 7:30, earbuds in, confidence loose in his shoulders. The kind of man who believed bad things happened to other people. That belief didn't last long. I didn't touch him. I didn't block him. I didn't even raise my voice. I said his name once. He stopped, pulled out an earbud, smiled that same glassy smile. "You stalking me now?" "No," I said. "I'm ending this." He laughed. "You don't end anything." I stepped closer, just enough. "I know about the contractor," I said quietly. "The one you paid in cash to check a door. I know about the voicemail you deleted, and I know you promised Mara a promotion you never intended to give her." His smile collapsed. Not all at once. Piece by piece. "You're bluffing," he said. "Maybe," I said, "but you don't know that. And that's the problem." I leaned in, voice low. "If anything else happens to me, anything, your wife gets everything. Recordings, receipts, dates, including the part where you suggested someone scare me." He swallowed. I straightened and stepped back. I'm not violent, I said, but I'm done being harmless. I turned and walked away. Behind me, he didn't follow. That afternoon, Mara filed for a restraining order. She didn't get it. But the filing itself did what she wanted. It made noise. Phones rang. HR asked questions. Friends stopped calling. The air around me grew thick and cautious. I let it. Because while everyone was watching the paper trail, nobody noticed the thing Mara missed. She'd taught me how she lied, and now I was ready to let her hear herself do it. The next move wouldn't be quiet. It would be public. And once it started, there would be no way to stop it. I didn't go after her immediately. That was the second mistake she didn't expect. People like Mara prepare for explosions. They don't know what to do with silence that moves. For 3 days, nothing happened. No texts, no leaks, no public statements. I went back to work. I answered HR's questions with clean, short sentences. I complied. I documented. I smiled politely at people who suddenly spoke to me like I was glass. Behind the scenes, the board at her firm was doing the same thing boards always do when risk enters the room, pretending not to see it while quietly asking who brought it in. Celeste did exactly what she said she would do. Nothing dramatic. She didn't confront Dane. She didn't accuse him. She started canceling appearances, declining dinners, saying no in ways that made people notice. When people notice, they ask. When they ask, stories spread without anyone having to tell them. By the 4th day, Dane wasn't jogging anymore. He left his house early and came back late. His car changed parking spots. His smile, the one he used like a weapon, had gone brittle. That's when I made it physical, not violent, personal. It started with his car. I didn't damage it. I didn't scratch the paint or mess with anything that could hurt someone. I waited until it was parked in the underground garage of his building, where cameras existed but angles were lazy. I poured something thick and foul-smelling into the air intake below the windshield. Not toxic, just unforgettable. The kind of smell that doesn't air out easily, the kind that clings to leather and fabric and pride. Then I left a note under the wiper. You should stop pretending you're untouchable. No signature, no threats, just truth. The next morning, Celeste texted me a single word. Meltdown. Dane had shown up to a senior meeting late, furious, red-faced, reeking. Tried to laugh it off, failed, stormed out, slipped on his own narrative. That afternoon, I took the second step. I went to his house, not to break in, not to wait in the shadows. I rang the bell. Celeste opened the door. She already knew I'd come. She stepped aside without a word. Dane was in the living room, pacing, phone in hand. When he saw me, his face twisted, not into rage, but panic. You can't be here, he snapped. I can, I said calmly. You invited me, indirectly. Celeste stayed by the door, arms crossed, watching him like a stranger. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten him. I told him everything I knew. About the contractor, about the voicemail, about the promise he'd made Mara, about the way he coached her on optics the same way she coached her sister on bruises. Every sentence landed like a slap he couldn't respond to. You think you're scary, I said quietly, but you're just loud. He lunged a half step forward, not at me, at the space between us, the instinct to dominate. I didn't move. Touch me, I said, flat. And this becomes something you can't control. Celeste exhaled slowly behind me. Dane stopped. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was his breathing. I leaned closer, just enough. This ends today, I said. You walk away from her. You stop contacting me, and you prepare for what happens next. What happens next? He asked. I smiled, not kindly. You lose. I turned and walked out. No chase, no yelling. Just the sound of a man realizing the ground under him wasn't solid anymore. The public collapse came 2 nights later. A charity gala, downtown hotel, glass walls. Too many witnesses for anyone to lie comfortably. Mara was there. She wore red. She always wore red when she wanted to feel powerful. She laughed too loudly, touched arms too often, told a story about resilience that made people nod sympathetically. Dane arrived late, alone. Celeste arrived separately. I waited until the room was full. I didn't take the stage. I didn't interrupt speeches. I approached the one person Mara couldn't afford to lose, the firm's senior partner, the one whose approval had always hovered just out of reach. I said one sentence. "There's a recording you should hear before you defend her." That was it. Celeste did the rest. She stepped into the circle of donors and board members and said calmly, "I'm filing for separation, and I'm making a statement tonight." Dane tried to intervene. Security stopped him. Mara's smile cracked. People turned. Phones came out. Whispers rippled. Someone asked, "What recording?" I didn't answer. The senior partner did, after he listened. Mara saw it in his face before he said a word. Her knees actually buckled, just slightly, enough that I noticed. She pushed through the crowd toward me, eyes wild now, voice sharp. "You did this," she hissed. "No," I said. "You did." She looked around, realizing too late that no one was on her side anymore. Not her parents, not Dane, not the room. Dane was escorted out the side door, pale, furious, small. Mara stood frozen. I leaned in, just enough for her to hear. "You taught me something," I said. "That people don't believe words, they believe marks." Her mouth opened. I walked away before she could speak. Behind me, the room exploded, not loudly, but permanently. Questions, distance, the sound of doors closing without slamming. I didn't stay to watch her fall. I'd already seen enough. The story ended there. For her, for Dane, for the version of me they thought they could erase. And as I stepped out into the night air, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I wasn't the man who'd survived her lie. I was the man who'd finished it. The parking garage behind the hotel smelled like oil, rain, and old concrete. That's where it ended. Not in the ballroom. Not under chandeliers. Not with applause or speeches. Down here. I was halfway to my car when I heard footsteps that didn't belong to me, fast, angry, uncontrolled. "Evan!" I didn't turn around immediately. I counted 3 steps in my head, let the moment stretch, let him feel ignored. Then I turned. Dane Kessler stood 10 feet away, jacket off, tie hanging loose around his neck like something he'd tried and failed to hang himself with. His face was red, eyes blown wide with adrenaline and humiliation. Security hadn't followed him this far. Celeste hadn't either. This was his last card. "You think you're clever?" he spat. "You think you won something tonight?" I glanced past him, casually, like I was checking for traffic. "You shouldn't be here." A humorless laugh ripped out of him. "You don't get to tell me where I should be." He stepped closer. I stayed where I was. "That recording," he said. "You know what it does if it gets out fully? Not just to me. To her." "Mara?" I asked. His lip curled. "She's finished. You made sure of that." I nodded. "Yes." That word landed harder than anything I could have shouted. For a second, I thought he might swing. Not because he was brave, because he was desperate. His hands twitched. His shoulders rolled forward. I leaned in just enough for him to smell me. "If you touch me," I said quietly, "the cameras down here won't save you. They'll only make sure everyone sees who you really are." He froze. Good. I reached into my pocket slowly and pulled out my phone. Not to threaten. Not to record. Just to remind him of something he'd forgotten. "You know what your biggest mistake was?" I asked. He didn't answer. "You assumed I needed to destroy you?" I continued. "I didn't. I just needed to let you speak." I tapped the screen and played the voicemail Celeste had already given the firm's legal team an hour earlier. Dane's own voice filled the garage, tinny but unmistakable. "If he doesn't back off, scare him. Don't touch him. Just make him understand. Dane's face collapsed inward, like a building losing its supports. That's not, he started. I cut him off. It doesn't matter what you say now. I stepped closer, this time into his space, not threatening, final. You don't get your job back, I said. You don't get your wife back. You don't get to rewrite this. And you don't get to scare anyone ever again. He swallowed hard. You think you're better than me? I shook my head. No, I think I'm worse, because I learned. That's when he lost it. He surged forward, chest first, hands grabbing at my jacket. I reacted without thinking. Not a punch, not a fight. I slapped him. Open hand, sharp, loud. The sound cracked through the garage like a gunshot. Dane staggered back, stunned more by the disrespect than the pain. His hand flew to his cheek, eyes wide, breathing ragged. I leaned in while he was still trying to process it. That, I said, calm as a doctor delivering a diagnosis, is the only thing you'll ever get from me physically. I straightened. Everything else? I added. You already lost. He didn't follow me after that. He couldn't. I walked away, each step lighter than the last, and got into my car. As I pulled out, my phone buzzed one final time. Mara. I almost didn't open it. Almost. You destroyed me. I stared at the message, at the simplicity of it, the certainty. I typed one sentence back. No. I stopped you. I hit send. Then I blocked her. I didn't wait for a reply. I didn't need one. Because at that exact moment, as I drove up the ramp and back into the night, I saw them through the glass doors of the hotel lobby. Mara, with her parents. Her mother crying openly now. Her father staring straight ahead, jaw locked, unable to look at her. No comfort, no defense, no script left. The story she'd built, the one where she was the victim and I was the monster, had nowhere left to live. I didn't slow down. I didn't look back again. The car merged into traffic, city lights blurring into streaks of white and red, and the weight I'd been carrying for weeks finally dropped away. Not gently, but completely. There was no redemption waiting for me. No applause, no fresh start speech, just the clean, brutal certainty that the war was over, and I'd won it by ending it.